Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Today we're looking at some new cards which are introduced within Dinosaurs for Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duels. These are combining this kind of novelty of being very rich with the dinosaur type. So the first card is Upstart Goblin. It's a legend card and it's a normal spell card. The requirement, it doesn't have any, and the effect is you can draw one card, then your opponent gains 1,000 life points. This is the exact same as the original Upstart Goblin. It doesn't have any difference other than because it's a legend card, you can only run one of those cards, and only one legend card per deck. Xenogabazarus of the Great Sneeze, or as it's referred to as Xenogabazools, is a level 7 light attribute dinosaur type effect monster with 2,400 attack and 1,700 defense. The requirement, you can activate if your life points are less than your opponent's by placing one card from your hand to the bottom of the deck. The effect is both players send the top two cards of their deck to the graveyard. If a monster was sent to the graveyard by this effect, also inflict 400 damage times the number of monsters sent to the graveyard by this effect to your opponent. So this actually works when you're actually losing the duel, and it only has to be when your life points are lower, so it could even be just 100 life points lower. It can be used to finish off your opponent, but it's very risky. You need to have your life points at, say, 1,000 or less, and your opponent's life points to be under 1,600 to be able to really maximize this effect. It also gambles on you being able to, and your opponent being able to discard potentially up to 4 monsters in total to be able to get the maximum 1,600 points of burn damage. It's a win harder card because you can actually also incorporate the battle damage that this card does. But for a level 7 monster, 2,400 attack, it's fine, but it's nothing to kind of write home about. Its summoning requirements are, because it's a level 7, it does need 2 monsters, and replacing a card from the hand to the bottom of the deck isn't too difficult to meet the requirements for. Mech Therizina is a level 3 light attribute dinosaur type effect monster. It's got 1,000 attack and 0 defense. The requirement is you can activate by sending a monster that's dinosaur type from the hand to the graveyard, and your effect is you can draw one card. It's a decent enough effect because you're actually able to send something to the graveyard. You might want to pitch something that you can revive later, and you're simply replacing it with an additional draw. Maybe your hand isn't stacked up particularly well, and actually that draw might give you something that can actually accelerate your plays that much further. It's a decent enough effect monster, but it's not something you want to be keeping around on the field. Parvenu King Rex is a level 3 light attribute dinosaur type effect monster with 700 attack and 1,000 defense. The requirement, you can activate if your opponent has no cards in their hand, and the effect is both players draw one card. If you both drew with this effect, you can also choose one Upstart Goblin in your graveyard and set it in your spell and trap zone. So this seems to be pairing well with the Upstart Goblin and trying to make that into some kind of sub-archetype. The condition means that your opponent has to have no cards in their hand, so that can actually be quite a difficult thing to accomplish. Unless for some reason you're able to do that yourself, because this is my policy. Anything relying on what your opponent has to do is always going to be weaker than something that you have control over. Both players get to draw an additional card, which is fine, and you happen to be able to recover a card, which is also okay. It's just additional draws which might make a little bit of difference. Pterosaur Stern Terror is a level 4 fire attribute dinosaur type effect monster with 500 attack and 1,200 defense. It doesn't have any requirements, and the effect is to send the top card of your deck to the graveyard. Then you can randomly choose one card from your opponent's hand and place it on the bottom of the deck. So this helps to disrupt what your opponent has, especially if they're trying to search for particular cards and they've used resources to make sure those cards are currently in their hand. Other than that, it's quite a weak card, as you're having to get rid of one of your cards anyway to use this effect. It does say as a note that this card's name is a play on pterosaur in Japanese. Yukuryu, except winged, has been replaced with restrain, check, curb, or suppress. Celebrontosaurus is a level 4 light attribute dinosaur type normal monster with 1,400 attack and 1,000 defense. At the moment, with the way normal monsters are working, most of these don't reach this level of stats for a normal monster and for a level 4, so it's decent enough to consider running. Platinodon is a level 1 light attribute dinosaur type normal monster with 0 attack and 1,400 defense. For a level 1 monster, it's quite decent considering most level 4 monsters can't really get over this level of stat for defense. so it's definitely considered to be running just for the time being. Jurassic World is a field spell card with no requirement. The effect is, while this card is face up on the field, face up monsters that are dinosaur type on the field gain 300 attack and defense. This card was used by Tyranno Hasselbury in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 2, who was also a dinosaur support duelist. Dinosaur Crush is a normal spell card with the requirement you can activate if you control a face-up monster, must be a level 7 or higher dinosaur type, by sending one card from your hand to the graveyard. The effect is to choose and destroy one face-down card your opponent controls. So this could be either a spell card, a trap card, or a set monster. The problem with this card is it does require you to have a very specific type of monster, and it has to be at a certain level, and you also have to discard a card to activate this effect. So in terms of card economy, you are already -1 using its ability. If you are concerned about what your opponent is running, it's a good countermeasure, but I'm sure there will be further advancements in the future. And the final card is Dynamic Pressure. This is a normal trap card with the requirement you can activate when your opponent's monster declares an attack by shuffling 3 monsters that have to be dinosaur type from your graveyard into the deck. The effect is all face-up monsters your opponent controls lose 1,000 attack until the end of the turn. I think this is a really decent effect. Not only does it have the Pot of Avarice effect to be able to recover some of your dinosaur type monsters that you might need to use in the future, but it actually shuts down some of your opponent's monsters. If they happen to attack into one of your monsters, 1,000 attack points in decreasing means that you might be able to actually overrun some of their monsters, and it might force their opponent to end their battle phase. It also means that it's also a decent enough stat decline to protect your monsters for the remainder of the turn. So what do you guys think of the new dinosaur support? I know some of this was introduced within the anime and has just been released into the TCG as soon as Rush Duels gets released, but there were a couple of examples such as this Dynamic Pressure that weren't involved, and definitely out of the current support, it's probably my favourite out of there. Let me know in the comments down below which is your favourite and which one don't you like. Whatever you think, make sure to leave those comments. Make sure to like the video and don't forget to subscribe for more daily Yu-Gi-Oh content.